Do you ever wish someone would draw you a map and give you the directions to the career of your dreams? If so, consider this podcast your GPS to a career where you feel strong, fulfilled, and passionate about your work, day in and day out. On this show, I am sharing the tools to help you advocate for your strengths, discover your passions, and learn from folks who transformed their careers for the better. My name is Joyel Crawford, your fairy god mentor, and with my 18 years of experience in HR at a Fortune 50 company and 20 years of coaching and mentoring top leaders, I am thrilled to be your guide on this career journey. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Career View Mirror, where we take an unfiltered look at the journeys of professionals who are transforming how we think about work, life, and purpose. I'm your host, Joyel Crawford, your fairy god mentor, and today I am joined by an extraordinary leader whose career and calling are grounded in service, faith, and transformation, LaVerne Toombs. LaVerne Toombs is a dynamic leader, author, and entrepreneur with a lifelong commitment to community empowerment and organizational growth. She currently serves as the interim director of the Algiers Economic Development Foundation, AEDF, where she spearheads initiatives that strengthen small businesses, foster economic opportunity, and revitalize the West Bank community. A seasoned nonprofit executive and founder of Right For You LLC, LaVerne brings more than 2 decades of experience in fund development, strategic partnerships, and civic engagement. She is also the celebrated author of the memoir Me, My Story of Perseverance and Triumph, which chronicles her journey of resilience, leadership, and faith. Throughout her career, LaVerne has championed equity, education, and empowerment, supporting organizations across the country and advancing opportunities for youth and families across Louisiana. Known for her visionary leadership and collaborative spirit, she continues to inspire others to serve, lead, and create lasting impact in their communities. From leading organizations to empowering communities, she's someone who has spent her life helping others find meaning when finding her own. LaVerne, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. I am so excited to be here, to be on with you today. And also good to see you. It's been a minute.
Yes, we haven't seen each other since BaldyCon
That's right.
2024. And that's where I was just like, I'm going to show my ask and make the bold. I was so inspired by what you had spoken at BaldyCon. I was so inspired by what you shared. I was just like, she doesn't know me from a can of paint, but we are in a room full of people where we feel safe. And I decided to just walk up to you and I was like, can you be on my podcast? Can we stay in
Here
touch?
we are.
And here
Yes.
we are.
Great. Yeah, that conference, I tell you, brings such, a bond with all of us. And I have, as probably you as well, they've established lifelong friends. And it's just been an eye opener for me in so many ways. So, again, establishing friendships and long-term relationships, and then just being there to empower and inspire and be impactful to other women who we maybe, decide to go this route by choice, where others were forced to, be bald,
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to embrace it and embrace our beauty. It just means so much. And it's just, for me personally, I talk about it in my book, the journey in regards to me deciding to go down this path.
Oh, beautiful. Speaking of journeys, you've had such an impactful journey from working in the government as a senator to nonprofit leadership to entrepreneurship to authorship. What experience or defining moment most inspired you to step into this purpose driven work?
When I learned that I had a purpose in my life,
Mm.
I read this book, Purpose Driven Life, or Life, what is it? Purpose
Larry
Driven.
Ganji? Like, yes, yes.
It was such a life-changing experience for me. I was recommended by my therapist, to read the book, and then when I read it, I realized that I had purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and then I began to seek that. I wanted to have better understanding of what is my purpose and my mission and my assignment, and as I began to focus on those 3 areas, I began to see a transformation. But then also in doing that same process, I was advised by a spiritual minded individual who helped me understand how important it is to let things go. And in my
Mm-hmm.
book, I talk about that in the first 3 chapters
Mm-hmm.
of, learning of something that I didn't quite understand that impacted my childhood, but also impacted me as an adult. That I carried on from childhood to adulthood, and then when I began to understand the advice that I received from that person and began to embrace it and implement it in my life, again, understanding purpose, which really aligned because of the purpose before I was able to embrace purpose, I had to forgive and I had to let go of things in the past to really focus on my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So then, there was a transformation in my life, and I began to really see things much clearer, and began to execute those things because I understood the alignment from that.
And thank you for sharing that. It's always fascinating to hear how people were inspired. It was it this, people talk, Oprah talks about the aha moments and things of that nature. Was it this defining moment, like where it hit you like a lightning bolt, like that you were like, this is it? Or just the series of things that you did, almost like the the path that you took by like clearing out the clutter, I guess you could say, or letting go? Was that the thing that, like, was there a an instant where you were like hit by a lightning bolt, or was it just a series of things that happened?
No, it was a series of things
Okay.
because, individuals can come to you and kind of give you some advice or some direction about your life, spiritual, especially in the spiritual sense, if you
Mm-hmm.
will. And so I had a lot of confidence in this person and
Mm-hmm.
decided that, okay, maybe I would do this, but I really didn't understand it. And I really
Mm-hmm.
didn't know the steps in beginning to walk by faith and understanding what forgiveness really meant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to practice it. So
Ah.
I had my first test with my ex-husband, who we went through a lot of things, and it just so happens that I saw him. I hadn't seen him in years, and I saw him at the post office, which was the craziest place to see someone. And it was like this voice was whispering in my ear, like, "Okay, here's your opportunity." And I remember opening my mouth and asking him for forgiveness. Not that I had done anything to him, but something said for me to do it.
Yeah.
And I stepped out. And I when I did that, it was like this weight on me was lighter. And then in 2005, which I talk about in the book, where we here in New Orleans was faced with Hurricane Katrina, I evacuated to North Louisiana where my mother at the time lived.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember visiting her, and that same little voice was saying, "This is an opportunity." And I remember going to my mother at the time, she was 85 years old,
God bless her.
and and I asked her again, as I shared with my ex-husband, would please forgive me. And at that point, I realized that I had taken responsibility for my actions. I had a better understanding of my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Did I agree with everything that my mother did?
Who does?
No. Okay. My mom used to whip me with an extension cord till she would cut I would be bleeding. But, that's the way she was raised. So she didn't
Mm-hmm.
know any better. But I
Right.
didn't know that she didn't know any better. I
Right.
didn't have no idea that my mother was having her own challenges that she didn't know how to deal with.
Right.
Where, therapist and talking to somebody and talking to your pastor and all that kind of stuff. And our culture is very private. We're very private people.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was one of those individuals. My mother was an excellent communicator, but she was also very thuggish in her communication.
Mm,
She would cuss you out in a minute. Every word was an adjective. But then on the other hand, she was very intelligent for somebody who had only a third grade education, who instilled in me the importance of communication and vocabulary and being able to pronounce your words correctly.
right.
And I'm from a rural community, didn't have that type of role model or anybody that I could pattern after other than my mother, who really instilled that into me.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, when I went to my mom, and if you saw my TED talk, that was one of the things that I talked about in my TED talk about
Mm-hmm.
forgiveness, which was the F bomb.
Yes.
And then my life, I began to actually see some transformation and understood. I began to see clearer, right? I began to really have a greater appreciation of my mother,
Mm-hmm.
where I didn't have that before because I blamed her for everything, right? I was
Right.
mad, I was bitter, from the 14-year-old who learned, and I talk about it in my book about my adoption, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody talks about adoption. What is that? All I know
Right.
is that some woman birthed me into this world, gave me up for adoption. I was property of the state of Michigan. My mother came to an orphanage. She saw this little nappy head black girl with hazel eyes and brought her home. That was it. And I'm like, okay. And the interesting thing of it is my mom and my grandmother never talked to me about it again. That was it. And I talk more about it in my book, right?
Mm.
So yeah.
You leave us wanting more. I know our producer, Kayla wants to learn more about the book, and I know that our audience does too. I mean, what does a day in a life like? You made a lot of peace with yourself. You let go and you started walking in your purpose. You do so much from like learning, leading and serving and mentoring and writing and speaking. What does a typical day look like for you now, and how do you get the flow from being in service with protecting your own peace and your purpose? How do you align those two?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I'm still learning. Because I feel like now, being in government for almost 20 years, I worked for a United States Senator, as you alluded to earlier,
Mhm.
did that for 13 years. She lost her election in 14. I then went on to be a chief administrative officer of a parish, which you all would consider a county.
Mhm.
I was the second person in charge. So 5 years there. So we're talking about 18, 19 years of not really having a life. And so when I decided that I was going to semi-retire, I had no idea that my particular skill set was in demand. And so HBCU asked me to come and help them. They were having some accreditation issues. They brought me on as a non-degree individual to work for HBCU, right?
Mm, that's a
Uh,
big deal.
right. And here it is. You got these PhDs and all these people with all this intellect, but they brought me in to help them raise $1 million. Well, interesting enough, not only was I there to raise money, but then I wind up actually being the chief of staff of the chancellor, so-called. I actually was the communications, the marketing, you name it, I did it. And then the interim chancellor decided to give me this title as the interim chief administrative officer. So here I am on the executive cabinet with all these PhDs.
Mm,
I did that for a year, raised them about $700,000 during COVID. Um, yes, during COVID. And so
mm,
he wanted me to stay, but I just that wasn't a good fit for me in
mhm.
academia. And furthermore, I didn't fit the criteria on that level in their minds. And
Right.
so anyway, I decided again, I said I'm gonna semi-retire.
Mhm.
Then another organization asked me to come and help them to serve in an interim capacity, similar to what I'm doing now, to help restructure their organization. And I was able to do that in less than a year, raise them again, probably about a $500,000, restructured the organization. And then again, I said, oh, I'm a semi retire. And then a national nonprofit asked me to come and help them. And so I served as the development director, vice president of development for this national nonprofit organization, and helped them raise about almost $1 million, about $968,000 with a team.
Mhm.
But it wasn't a good fit for me, right? And I had made up in my mind when we talk about peace
Yes.
that I did not want to work that hard anymore. I
Okay.
had made a vow to myself that I need time for LaVerne, and I
Yeah.
didn't know what that was like. So when I decided to step out on faith, and it really was faith, because I had no job. I did have a small contract,
Mhm.
but the timing was just perfect because when that's contract that I had, I flew to Washington D.C. with my client.
Mhm.
They were considered best practice. They then asked me to increase my hours, increase my time, which increased my contract. And they were the only clients that I had at the time.
Wow.
So I stepped out on faith. I remember crying every day, trying to figure out, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And so with that, I remember the first time I was a little tired and I laid down to take a nap, woke up and it felt guilty because I was like, oh my God.
Ah,
I've never been able to take a nap or have free time because I always felt like I needed to be doing something. And people who
yes.
would sit around and do nothing all day, I just, I thought
That's
that
me.
I was like, something is wrong with y'all. Y'all need to be doing something. How you can sit around and just chat and sit on the sofa and watch TV all day?
Yes. How dare they?
Yeah, yeah. But you know what? I said, I remember my daughter, my second child, says the best thing for her ever in life is to do nothing. And I didn't know what that was like. And so I said, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this
Mhm.
do nothing thing.
Mhm.
So I began to structure my time, right? So I have office hours.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
I'm self employed, as you mentioned, my company, Right For You. I built my clientele and over 2 years. And and so I work Monday through Thursday. If
Mhm.
I work on a Friday, it's a half a day. If I work on a Saturday, I've opened my doors at 9 and in at 1 o'clock. That's it, 9 to 1. I do not work on Sundays unless I absolutely have to. But
Okay.
that's my time.
That's your time.
Saturday from 1 to whatever is my time. I do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. If I want to sit on the sofa and do nothing, sit in my favorite chair and do nothing, I don't feel nothing. If I want to take a nap, like I normally do sometime, I take a nap for an hour so I can get
Mhm.
regenerated. I don't feel guilty anymore. So I am learning how to spend time with me and do the things that I enjoy most.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it took a minute. It took a minute for me to adjust to that behavior, but
Mhm.
I'm enjoying it every moment of it. Yes, and I want to even be better at it.
Oh, yes. I want to be a certified nap artist. Like, I want to be completely in that role of just being able to, like, lay down, and my husband is able to do that, like, at a drop of a hat, and I just don't understand how he's able to do it. But it takes practice. It's
Mhm,
learning where your limits are. I also work Monday through Thursday. Friday is client X day for me, and
mhm,
client X, because I do anything for my clients. Well, client X is me.
mhm.
So I try to focus on what I want to do on that day. If I want to take a contract or talk to a client, that's what I do. Like, so that's like your Saturday. But
Mhm.
it's so interesting to hear that it is a practice, that it's not something, if it's not something natural, then you're just going to have to practice being a human being instead of a human doing. So
Correct,
yeah.
correct. Absolutely. Life is
Ooh,
short, and especially for me, I've turned 65 this year, so I got my Medicare card.
happy birthday.
And so, I realized that my time is growing short.
Yeah.
Just to think that Katrina was 20 years ago, I was 45 years old. And here I am 20 years later, I'm 65 years old. So those 20 years went by really fast. And so now that I'm 65, I realize, it would be great if I lived to see 85, right?
Mm,
My mother lived to see 87, and I always pray to God that I live as long as she did.
mm.
So yeah, yeah, it was just time for me to just enjoy life. And I do. I play golf in the middle of the week. If I don't feel like, I do whatever I want to do. But I also make sure that I take care of my clients as well.
What's one of the things that sparks the most joy for you, Laverne?
My grandchildren.
Oh. How many
Yeah,
grandchildren do you have?
I have 6.
Ooh la la. They
Mm.
gotta keep you busy. That's a lot of grandkids.
Well, none of them live here. The
Okay.
majority of them live in Houston, and the others live in South Dakota. And
Mhm.
so yeah, they are my lifeline, or my grandchildren.
Mm.
And it's amazing. I can get a text from them, and I could, have a bad day or something happens, and I get a text, and it just puts a smile on my face and warms my heart. So yeah, it's my grandchildren.
Lovely, lovely. So
And
I
and
wanted
als
to
and also my service. I
ooh,
really do
that
enjoy
sparks joy.
my service, and how I got engaged in understanding volunteerism. It really was by accident. Somebody asked me to volunteer for an organization, and I said, "Yeah," but I had never heard that word volunteer. I didn't even know what I was doing. I just knew that I was working for free. That's all I know. And it was the greatest experience and opportunity because it has really shaped me into the woman that I am today. So I'm forever thankful to that woman who asked me to volunteer because it created a job. And from that job, that was my first nonprofit. I
Mhm.
was thrown into the world of writing grants and raising money. And here it is, 2.5 decades later. This is exactly what I'm doing for a living. So
Oh, that's
it was
amazing.
meant to be, right? And
Yes.
yeah, and because of the fact that my life hasn't always been like this, right? I was sharing in a board meeting this morning that I know what it was like to make $18,500 a year, right?
Mm,
And of course, my goal is to make $20,000 to $25,000 a month. That's my
mm,
goal.
mhm.
But you know, I serve because of my passion,
Yes.
because I know, and I talk a lot about my challenges in my younger life, if you
Mhm.
will, all the way till 62 years old. The book is 14 chapters, less than 100 pages. It's an easy read, but they're great, great stories. And I didn't realize, I guess, about those stories because you can get Audible too now.
Oh, are
And
you narrating it?
no, I'm not. Someone else
Oh.
is, but at first, I didn't support it, but then when it actually came out and it's on
Mhm.
Amazon, I listened to my story. I actually cried through the whole thing, and I just couldn't believe that that was me. That I was actually
Wow.
telling my story. It was profound, and the first 3 chapters were very difficult for me
Mhm.
mentally. Uh,
Mhm.
I had to take a break because it was some hard stuff
Hard.
I had to share.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Tell me a little bit more about faith and purpose. They're clearly at the heart of everything that you do. What gets you out of bed in the morning? What's your why?
Well, my why, oh my God, that's a good question. And that is, it, it's so important. It's so important about having an impact on people's lives,
Mhm.
right? Um, Bringing forth change and empowering people and inspiring. Because I didn't have anybody there back in the day to empower. I was always bullied belittled, degraded. And so I lived that life of feeling as though that I was worthless and that I didn't have anything to contribute to society. And so the real why is my way of getting up every day and thanking God that I can see another day, but also an opportunity for me to use the very gifts and skills that God has given me to be able to share those gifts and skills with others. And so I'm forever thankful for the spirit of humility
Mm,
that God has instilled in me because I never will in life forget where my life back in the day. That is my driver,
mm,
right? And so that's why I'm so involved in the community and with nonprofits, especially when it comes to women and children,
mhm.
because I know what it's like to suffer. And I talk about those sufferings in my book.
Is that what's inspired you? Like, what inspired you to write the book in the first place? Like, was it because you didn't? Well, I'm gonna not even gonna answer. I'm leading the witness. What inspired you to write the book in the first place?
Because I just wanted women to know that they're not alone,
Mm,
right? I wanted them to know that it's okay. It's life after the divorce, right? Someone who survived domestic violence, that,
mm,
you know, we beat the odds. And matter of fact, when I was a co author of a book a year and a half ago where 10
mhm.
of us shared our stories. And I think I may have talked about it at Baldicon, where we talked about how we survived domestic violence. And it was a bestseller.
Mhm,
And so God answered my prayers because I really wanted to be a best-selling author before I wrote my book. And
mhm.
interesting enough, I was in the process of writing my book. But my book has that seed of me writing my book about me has been there for years when my daughters were in junior high and they're grown women. My oldest will be 44 years old
Oh
next
my
month.
goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And
That's a
so,
long dream. That's a long dream to have.
yeah.
Mhm,
And so when I did that TED talk, that was mine. I guess the light went off in my head, like,
mhm,
okay, Laverne, this is it. This is the time. And then when I did as the co-author or co-contributor to the book, I
mhm,
knew that this was the timing. I knew that this was it. And it took me 2.5 years to start and to finish, actually, from writing the book, selecting a publisher, getting the book on the market,
mhm.
and start, so it was March of this year that my book launched.
That's
So
fan
my why is just life, just lifing and
life.
contributing. Yeah, just contributing and just giving as much of myself as possible
Ah, in service.
in
That
service.
is
It's the
it, in
greatest gift. Yeah.
service.
Hmm.
In service. All these things, that line of service, just it's like a golden thread throughout your life, what you've done through the book. Is there a specific chapter in or moment that felt like a personal breakthrough for you during the writing process?
Yeah, when I do my book signings, I just don't like sit around and write signed books. That to me, it's just not impactful. So what I normally do is I read a chapter in the book, and so
Mhm,
I read chapter 5, which is probably one of the most difficult chapters in the book. I give you a little tidbit. I talk about when I was violated, or other words, when I was raped,
mhm,
and so I had to relive that whole experience.
mhm, mhm,
So that I can continue writing.
mm,
So yeah, that was the factor. And so when I read that chapter, no matter where I am across the country, I make sure I read that chapter. People are like blown away because, I walk up in there with my designer suit,
mhm.
looking all Vogue.
Dressed to the nines, and let me tell you, for those who cannot see Laverne, she's always dressed to the nines, intimidatingly style like she's one of my style crushes because she's just dressed. I mean, her outfit, chef's kiss, always dressed to the nines. It's
Well, thank
intimidating. I was really scared to approach you because I was like, this woman is
that
not
is
gonna
not
like,
that.
I'm not
That
worthy
is,
to speak to her.
yeah, no, that's not. I love fashion. Always have loved fashion when I didn't even know I love fashion. But yeah. So when I read chapter 5, I mean, I had men in tears
Mm,
when I read that
mm,
chapter. And I'm very theatrical, very, I put a lot more to it.
mm-hmm.
There's a few adjectives in there too, so I always let people know, I'm just being real.
Yes.
And but at the end of the day, um, being able to relive that pain and that trauma, it was just something that I for myself can't believe that I actually did it. Um, I was a little concerned about my children, how they were going to react to it,
Right.
but they pretty much, they knew about all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But as the book progressed, right, it gets better.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
like, okay, LaVerne, does it ever get better? I mean, is there anything for you to celebrate? But it does. It gets better as
Can't wait.
you get closer to the end.
Thank you for sharing that because it's as a fellow author, there are some times when you are writing a book where there's a certain chapter that gets I'm getting stuck at, and I'm like, why am I resisting this? And it's because of certain things that have impacted me emotionally. And so I
Mhm,
appreciate you sharing that and sharing the kind of revisiting that place, that breakthrough chapter that helps kind of get you motivated and inspired to continue to be in service to others,
mhm,
to make them feel not
mhm.
alone. What's one piece of advice, career advice, that you would tell your younger self? What's one piece of advice? I love this question. I always ask it of my guests.
Yes, to know your purpose. I think it's extremely important to understand why are we here on this earth,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the assignment that we're supposed to fulfill, and what is the mission that we should be on?
Right.
Um, because I think once we understand our purpose and our assignment, that we then understand whatever is ours, right? We don't
Mm-hmm.
have to go about doing anything other than doing exactly what we were assigned to do on this earth. And after reading that purpose-driven life, I understood that if I understand my purpose, then everything else will fall in line. And so when you understand your purpose, your assignment, and your mission,
Mm-hmm.
then you're really at peace,
Yeah.
right? You
Yep.
to know who you are, and you accept who you are.
Right.
You like who you are. You love who you are. You are thankful and grateful to God for creating you, and really demonstrate that sense of appreciation, that being on this earth and just utilizing everything that our higher power has given us, and have some sense of appreciation. So until then, I
Yeah.
was just living, right? Surviving, breathing, and waking up every day dreading it, until I understood you have purpose, LaVerne,
Yes.
and so you need to walk in it. And once you walk in it, then you understand your true identity of who you are. And so I always look at myself and say to myself that I'm not perfect, and I'm not where I would like to be, but I'm sure not where I used to be. That's for sure.
Amen.
And that's because of the fact that I've embraced me, and I love me. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't even be able to say that several years ago, right? Because I didn't really know I didn't take time to get to know me. But now that I have taken time to get to know me, my likes, dislikes,
Mm-hmm.
being able to say no, not really caring about, the street committee and their comments,
Yes.
because I have embraced who I am, and And I'm forever thankful and grateful for that. So yeah, I would tell my younger self, girl, get to know who you are, get to know you.
Mhm, mhm,
If I had done that, I wouldn't have made a lot of bad decisions and choices if
mhm.
I had just known that.
Mm, I love that. Thank you so much for your wise words. And
Well,
I
thank
know our
you.
listeners are taking copious notes. I want to thank you again, LaVerne, for sharing your journey and sharing your heart with us today. Your story is so powerful, and it's a reflection of what it means to lead and live in purpose and to live with faith. And before we wrap, how can listeners connect with you and get a copy of your book?
Yeah, yes. So several ways. One, Barnes and Noble,
Mhm.
Amazon, and let me see. Yeah, Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and Books a Million.
All
They can
right.
also get the Audible on Amazon as well. To
Mhm.
those who may want to listen to the story, I would encourage you. You can do either. I have had people who have read the book and listened to the story and had different perspectives because they missed something, right?
Mm, mhm,
Or they can reach out and get it from me directly. We
mhm,
have a number of local bookstores here in New Orleans that carries my book as well. So you can email me, and you can follow me. I'm encouraging people to follow me on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn.
mhm.
And so I don't know if you have that, but I can share that with you.
Oh yeah, definitely share all the links and we'll put that in our
Mhm.
notes so that everyone can follow you.
Yeah, I have an interesting life. I love the life that I live.
Yes, and I follow you everywhere. I'm like
Yeah,
professional stalking
my
you.
life of service, right? So, yeah, I have a lot of fun. My friends tell me all the time, Laverne, you are living your life. And I
You
say, you know
are.
what? I am living my life and I make no apologies for it.
No, you don't. And I love seeing all of her posts. I follow her on all the platforms and yeah, because I professionally stalk her.
Oh,
Um,
that's okay.
but
That's okay. And I
I'm
appreciate you as well.
Oh, thank you
Yes.
so much. Thank you so, so much for being here on our show. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Career View Mirror, where we reflect and learn and grow and glow up together. If this episode inspired you, share it with somebody who's ready to step into their calling and find their purpose. And remember, your career journey is your mirror. So keep showing up, keep shining, and keep showing your ask. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to Career View Mirror. If you got value from this episode, please consider leaving a rating and a review for the show on Apple Podcasts or head on over to Spotify and click 5 stars for our show. We also have a YouTube channel with video versions of our episodes, so subscribe over there for more content. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next episode.